What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gamescast now, episode 37. I am Alex, and this is our conversational show about gaming, where normally it comes out every other week, Monday and Wednesday at 5 a.m. But for this episode, this is our bonus episode for really, it's the month of March. We normally have a bonus episode of both Gamescast Now and Podcast Now Live that air the last Sunday of every month. Because we were just so filled with stuff at the end of March, just all the videos, we decided to put this on Easter. So happy Easter to everybody. Hopefully you're all having a great day. So we wanted to do this, the first day of April. Also, April Fool's Day. We have nothing planned for April Fool's Day. We're not going to talk about jokes or pretend we're shutting the channel down or anything like that. That's not going to happen. But for this topic, I do want to talk about Days Gone. And this has been a thing that, I like to make these bonus topics either something completely random in the gaming world that I like to talk about, like a prediction or something, or just like a really old story. I did that, I think, last month or the month before, as I talked about a story that was pretty old. I think it was the Spyro remaster. I did that on the last month, which was several weeks after it was announced, but I just wanted to give my thoughts about it because we don't normally get to share our thoughts about everything that happens in the news of entertainment, movies, or games. So I want to talk about the Days Gone delay, and I want to talk about how that impacts The Last of Us Part 2, mainly that second part. I'm not surprised Days Gone got delayed. I'm a little disappointed. I thought it was going to come out at the end of 2018. I thought the plan was always to try and make it come out in November. In a way, I think this honestly makes it better for Sony. I think this actually helps them in the long run. Considering Spider-Man, and go watch our last video, our last Gamescast, we talked about this. Spider-Man, I think, has been maybe even actually by the time you guys see this, maybe there'll be an official story on it. But I feel like Spider-Man has been internally delayed. I feel like it's going to come out in September. And, with Days Gone, before that happened, before Days Gone got delayed, that definitely put Sony in a weird spot, right? Because it's like, okay, you got Spider-Man coming out probably at the end of September. Where do you fit Days Gone? Where do you fit this game, and where do you fit it amongst all the other AAA games from all these other developers and publishers that are coming out around the same time? You want to give Days Gone a real solid chance to do well, because it could be your next big thing. Horizon right now is their next big thing, and I have no doubt Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is being made, and I do want to talk about that in the future before it officially gets announced so I can say I was right. But Days Gone, where does that fit, right? Well, we know now. It got delayed. I don't blame them. This is Sony Ben's first AAA game. They made Uncharted Golden Abyss on the Vita, a phenomenal game, really good, arguably better than Uncharted 1. But, it's a Vita game, and this is a AAA game. Days Gone is a AAA game. It needs to do well also, because I'm sure there's opportunities that Sony Ben will lose out on if this doesn't do well. I think Sony Ben needs this game to be a success. What mark they set at that success rate, like where do they determine there's a successful amount of copies sold, or, critically, the score gets on Metacritic or whatever, I don't know all that. But I do think they're expecting the game to do extremely well. In order to do that, you need to give it its chance. I think a lot of Sony faithfuls, a lot of PlayStation 4 faithfuls will buy into this game, because just the vision of it. And I'm personally very, very excited. This would have been, and even was, when I thought it was coming out this year, this was one of my most anticipated games of the year. And I'm sure it'll be one of my most anticipated games of next year. I have no doubt. I also have no doubt that we'll probably see gameplay of it at E3, even though it got delayed. I definitely think we'll see it at E3. What does this mean for The Last of Us? Because, firstly, let me talk about something really fast. If you made it this far, congratulations. The Last of Us Part 2 is not, I repeat, not coming out in 2018. I've seen videos from some people, I don't know, medium-sized channels, not our size, maybe I can still consider us small, medium-sized channels saying, The Last of Us Part 2 confirmed for 2018. It was never at any point confirmed for 2018. No one has ever said it's coming out in 2018. Sony has never said it. Naughty Dog has never said it. Neil Druckmann's never said it. Nobody has said. Ashley Johnson, Troy Baker, no one said that it's coming out in 2018, and yet it's confirmed it's coming out in 2018. Yeah, okay. It's not coming out this year. We haven't even seen gameplay. Here's what's going to happen. Here's my prediction. And this has nothing to do with The Last of Us Part 2, but it affects Last of Us Part 2, and we'll get to that. The Last of Us Part 2 is going to get shown gameplay. We're going to see gameplay of it at E3 this year. And it'll say 2019 at the very end. That's when it'll come out. It's going to come out, I believe, my personal prediction, and I'll make a video talking about this specifically as we get closer. I believe it's going to come out June of 2019. Now, what is important is to lock down that date in your head right now, right? That's what I'm going to roll with for the rest of this video. The Last of Us Part 2 will release in June of 2019. How does it affect Days Gone? It affects it pretty big, Because while the title maybe is like how Days Gone impacts The Last of Us, it's really how The Last of Us impacts Days Gone. I personally believe that Days Gone is the one in serious danger of hurting itself and not The Last of Us, if they get close together in terms of release date. The Last of Us Part 2 will not be touched by basically any game. The only game I think would hurt The Last of Us Part 2 would be like a GTA 6, which isn't coming out next year, or, some huge, I don't even think like if the next game in the Halo if Halo 6, which is probably coming out in the fall anyway, so it wouldn't affect it. But if Halo 6 came out the same day as The Last of Us Part 2, I'd be worried about Halo 6. Completely honest. That's not being a Sony fanboy. That's being just a smart, looking at what we have in front of us. I'd be afraid if I was Halo. There's no game that scares me when I consider what it could do to The Last of Us Part 2. Not a single one. Red Dead Redemption 2 would have been the one this year. It definitely would have been the one this year. So my point is, Last of Us Part 2 does not get impacted by this. Days Gone gets impacted by this. They have to be very careful when they release Days Gone. Days Gone needs to come out around God of War time or earlier next year. What I mean by that is like April. I think Days Gone is a pretty good April game. I don't know, just looking at it now, the wintry, foresty setting reminds me of like March, April. So why not release it in March, April? But no, really, that is their best shot. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn came out February 28th, the last day of February of last year. One of the best-selling PS4 exclusives out there. Obviously, Sony's new flagship franchise, really. People love the game. I love the game. It's a great game. So, Days Gone could be that again. So what I'm saying is, do I think it can come out before then? I don't think Sony does that. Like, even going back, I'm trying to remember PlayStation exclusives. God of War 3 is another one I can remember. March 21st, 2010, I believe, was when God of War 3 came out. So, Last of Us was in June. Uncharted 4 was in May. Uncharted 3 was in November. Uncharted 2 was in August. So, all these huge games. Heavy Rain, I honestly do not remember when Heavy Rain came out, but I don't think it came out in January. Could be wrong. It actually could have, now I'm thinking about it. Beyond Two Souls came out in the fall. So, all these games, all these big games, I could keep going down. Until Dawn came out in August. All these games, they don't really release them in January or February. So I think Days Gone then gets placed, and not a lot of games get released in January anyway. January and December are just, January, December, and July are the 3 months that games generally do not come out in. Smaller games, episodic games, those games are fair play for those months, but everything else generally stays away from it. So now that leaves Days Gone probably in the March area. I think middle of March would be a perfect time for Days Gone. It sets up the stage for a phenomenal year for Sony if it does well. You'd have Days Gone. You'd have The Last of Us Part 2 in June. You have Ghost of Tsushima of Sucker Punch coming out. I believe that would probably come out in the fall of next year of 2019. So you'd have that. I believe, Death Stranding. I think Death Stranding would make a push for late 2019. If not, then spring of 2020. And I also definitely highly believe Bloodborne 2 has been in development for a very long time and will probably come out next year as well. So you'd have 4 to 5 big titles coming out next year. And you'd still have, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 working on. You'd have Naughty Dog's next project. They'd be set for a long time of, exclusives and whatnot. But you'd have 4 to 5 really solid games. Not solid. Days Gone could be a sleeper game of the year contender. The Last of Us Part 2, I would assume, is the assumption to be game of the year. And even other games, if Death Stranding comes out, that game would be hugely appreciated to come out that year and also very much anticipated. But also, like, if Bloodborne 2 came out that year, people would flip over that game. Ghost of Tsushima, too. We want to all see what Sucker Punch has been doing for 5 years, right? So we'd be very excited for that, too. So they'd have really their big guns next year. They don't really have their big guns this year. Insomniac is not a Sony-owned studio, although they are making Spider-Man. That is a huge deal, and it's going to be a huge game. It's not their studio. We can still count it, I guess. But you basically have that and God of War. Those are the two. And now those are juggernauts, but The Last of Us Part 2 is bigger and most likely better than both of those games. And then you'd have the rest, Days Gone and the rest. So I think Days Gone is definitely now in the March to April of next year territory. I think that's a perfect time for it. I was not surprised at all when I saw it. Like I said, I was a little disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. I mean, this game I thought was going to come out late 2018 anyway, and for it to get delayed maybe saves it from being in the avalanche of games. Now, we don't know the other, these are just Sony exclusive. We do not know what's going on next year in March. Games are not announced that early, so anything could happen next March. But for now, Days Gone, if they put it in that kind of area. And again, that's just assuming The Last of Us comes out in June. If The Last of Us comes out in the fall, maybe Days Gone comes out right before E3. That'd be a good time for it too. All depends. I do not think you want to put it anywhere near close to The Last of Us. Give your franchise, give your exclusivity game a chance to breathe against another exclusive game you own, right? Don't pit Days Gone against The Last of Us Part 2 when you own both studios and they're both your games. It makes no sense to do that. A little puzzling why Yakuza 6 and God of War are coming out the same week, in my opinion. Like I've talked about before, I think that hurts Yakuza. It doesn't really make sense. Even like put them a week apart. Don't put them the same week. That's a little confusing. I do not think they'd make such a mistake with Days Gone and The Last of Us. I think they'd definitely separate them and give both the time to breathe. Again, Last of Us doesn't need air to breathe. It will suck the air from every living entity and dead entity and just take it all up and make it beautiful. But Days Gone would need it. Days Gone needs to be in the right time and needs to have a lot of things go right. It needs to be supported. It doesn't need other distractions such as, a Game of the Year that people would obviously think would be Game of the Year in The Last of Us Part 2. And I assume when we do Game of the Year awards, when other people do that and they talk about most anticipated 2019, they will definitely talk about The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think that's any mistake. I think that would be right now my most anticipated for next year. So that's what I think. I think Days Gone next year, 2019, March of 2019. And I think, if a bonus thing would be Last of Us Part 2 in June of 2019. That's my personal prediction. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about all this. What do you think of Days Gone's delay? Did you expect it to happen? What do you think this does? Do you think this sets it up better or worse? And how do you think that affects The Last of Us? You think one or the other games are actually hurt? Leave it in the comments below. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. And again, this has been our bonus episode of technically the month of March. We will do another one of these the last Sunday of April, where we'll do a bonus episode. Go check out Podcast Now Live. We have a bonus episode over there talking about Deadpool 2 and kind of its expectations. A really good one over there. So make sure you check that out and, stay tuned. Every other week these come out. Not this upcoming week, but the week after we'll be back to our normal schedule of Monday, Wednesday, every other week. Monday, Wednesday at 5 a.m. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next Gamescast now.